The sound of rolling suitcases and boarding calls echoed through the airport, but all I could hear was the thundering of my heart. I was only 15, clutching a backpack that felt too heavy for my shoulders, trying to keep up with my dad's long strides as he dragged a glossy suitcase behind him. We were supposed to be going on vacation together. That's what he told me weeks ago when he dangled the promise in front of me like candy. "Pack light," he had said. "You're finally coming with me this time." I had been so excited, finally thinking I might matter enough to be included. But the closer we got to the check-in counter, the stranger his mood became. He was smiling, almost smug, but not at me. Not with me. It was the kind of smile he wore when he was about to do something cruel and get away with it. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. "Dad, which gate are we?" I asked, my voice small over the airport noise. He stopped so suddenly I almost bumped into him. He turned, leaned down so his face was just inches from mine, and hissed, "You're not going anywhere. This trip isn't for you." My stomach dropped. "What? You said?" He cut me off with a sharp laugh. "Did you really believe that? This vacation is for me. For once in my life, I'm not dragging dead weight along. You're just a waste of life." The words slammed into me harder than any slap could. My chest tightened, heat stung behind my eyes, and I could barely breathe. Around us, families bustled past with their kids, laughter and excitement buzzing in the air. And here I was, 15 years old, being told I was disposable by the man who was supposed to protect me. He shoved the handle of my backpack into my hands. "Sit down. Wait. Do whatever. I don't care. I'm flying first class and you're not ruining it." And then he walked away, just like that. His back turned, his steps purposeful, his head high like he was proud of what he'd done. I watched in disbelief as he wheeled his suitcase toward the shiny check-in desk, handing over his ticket like nothing was wrong. I wanted to run after him, to beg, to scream, but my legs wouldn't move. My throat was tight. I sank onto the nearest plastic chair, clutching my bag, my whole body shaking. People passed by me, some glancing, most ignoring. I could hear boarding announcements blaring over the speakers. "Now boarding rows 1 through 5. I watched through the glass as the massive plane outside began to fill with passengers. Somewhere in that line was my father. I pressed my face into my backpack, hot tears soaking through the fabric. I felt like the loneliest person in the world, abandoned in a place too big, too loud, too cold. Minutes dragged into an hour, then another. I didn't move. I just stared at the doors where he'd disappeared, replaying his words in my head. Waste of life. Dead weight, over and over, stabbing deeper each time. When my phone finally buzzed, it wasn't him. It was Rachel, my older sister. A text. "Dad said you didn't make the cut. Guess he finally told you the truth." A laughing emoji followed. I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles whitened. Rage began to bubble through the cracks of my grief. Not just sadness, something sharper, darker. I thought of my mother, who had stayed behind. I thought of all the times she'd laughed with Dad at my expense, the times Rachel had called me the family burden. They were all in on it. They always had been. That night, alone on the cold airport bench, I made myself a promise. I would survive this. I would get stronger. And one day, I would make them regret every word, every smirk, every time they left me behind. They thought I was waste. They'd learn the hard way what happens when waste fights back. The days after that airport betrayal felt like walking through fog. I went home alone in a taxi, my backpack clutched to my chest like it was the only thing tethering me to the earth. The house was empty, quiet. Mom had gone to a friend's place for the weekend, and Rachel was staying with her boyfriend. I stood in the doorway, staring at the family photos on the wall, smiling faces, vacations I'd never been invited on, my dad's arm around Rachel like she was the prize he was proud to show off. My photo was there too, shoved in the corner, smaller, an afterthought. My eyes in the picture looked the same as they did that night, wide, desperate, hoping to be seen. I wanted to tear it down. I wanted to smash the whole wall, but I didn't. I walked past it and shut myself in my room. The next morning, the phone rang. Dad's voice on the other end, loud and casual, as if nothing had happened. "You get home all right? Good. I'll bring you something back if I feel like it." And then he laughed the same laugh I heard at the airport before he turned his back on me. I hung up without saying a word. Something shifted inside me that day. For years, I had begged for their love, craved scraps of approval, taken every cruel word as if maybe it was my fault. But now, the begging was gone, replaced with something heavier, sharper. I began to notice things I hadn't before. Bills scattered across the kitchen counter, red notices stamped in bold, my mother's constant complaints about money, even as she spent on parties and clothes, Dad bragging to neighbors about his luxury vacations, but I saw the envelopes he hid under the couch cushions, overdue payments, debts piling. They wanted me to believe I was the burden, but the truth was starting to show they were drowning, and they were too arrogant to admit it. At school, I kept my head down. I stopped waiting for them to pick me up. I worked extra hours at the diner down the street, saving every dollar I could. My friends didn't understand why I couldn't come hang out or why I always looked exhausted. I didn't explain. I was planning. Every time Rachel smirked at me, every time Mom sighed dramatically and called me useless, every time Dad barked orders like I was the maid, I filed it away. Not as pain this time, but as fuel. Late at night, I sat at the kitchen table while they slept, flipping through their hidden folders, mortgage statements, bank loans, receipts from the same vacation Dad had ditched me for. He had drained thousands just to sip champagne on a beach while I sat abandoned in an airport chair. The rage burned hotter, but now it was controlled, focused. I started copying things down, keeping notes in a little spiral notebook I hid under the loose floorboard in my room. Every missed payment, every lie, every moment they showed me who they really were. They thought I was weak. They thought I'd always stay quiet, always swallow the glass they fed me. But piece by piece, I was building something, a record, a weapon. And with every day that passed, my promise grew sharper. One day, they'd choke on the same cruelty they fed me. One day, I wouldn't be the one left behind in an airport. It would be them. By the time I turned 18, my notebook was fat with records, every overdue bill, every loan my parents pretended didn't exist, every cruel word they had flung at me like knives. I had a stack of receipts longer than any list of memories with them. While other kids at school talked about college plans and family trips, I was building an arsenal of truth. I never forgot the airport. I never forgot the way Dad's back looked as he walked away, suitcase rolling behind him, his words echoing, "Waste of life." 3 years later, that phrase became his undoing. It started when another foreclosure notice came in the mail. Dad snatched it out of the box before Mom could see, but I caught the glimpse of his panicked face. That night, he shouted at her for spending too much, shouted at Rachel for not marrying up fast enough, shouted at me for simply breathing in the room. "You're supposed to be helping this family," he bellowed, beer sloshing out of his glass. I didn't flinch this time. I smiled. "You said I was a waste of life. Why would a waste help you?" The silence that followed was delicious. His face turned red, but he had no words. A week later, I made my move. I packed a single suitcase and slipped my notebook inside, but instead of leaving quietly, I left copies of everything, every debt, every bounced check, every overdue mortgage in neat folders on the kitchen table. I even highlighted the worst ones in bright yellow. On top, I left a note in my careful handwriting. "This is the circus you built. Enjoy the show." Then I walked out. At first, I thought that was enough, but life had a way of circling back, and so did my anger. Months later, I was living in a small apartment across town, working double shifts, saving for community college. One night after work, I walked past a bar, and through the foggy window, I saw him. My father. His once proud shoulders slumped, begging the bartender to cover his tab, fumbling for a credit card that didn't work. I stepped inside. He froze when he saw me. For the first time in my life, he looked smaller than me. "Got a few dollars, kid?" he muttered, trying to laugh it off. "Help your old man out." The rage that had lived in me for years surged, but I didn't shout. I didn't throw a drink in his face. I leaned close, my voice calm. I was 15 when you left me at that airport. You told me I was a waste of life. Now look at you, bagging scraps from the waste. His face crumpled, his lips opening, but no words came. I dropped a couple of crumpled bills on the counter, not for him, but for the bartender, and turned to leave. But before I pushed the door open, I glanced back. Enjoy the circus, Dad. This time you're the clown. After that, I didn't hear from him for months. But Mom and Rachel? They came knocking. One evening, I heard the pounding at my apartment door. When I opened it, there they stood. Mom's hair was frazzled, her once polished nails chipped. Rachel's designer purse looked worn, the strap frayed. "We need help," Mom said, her voice trembling for the first time in my life. "Yeah," Rachel added quickly. "Dad's a mess, the bank is on us, and—" I held up a hand. "Stop!" They blinked at me. "Do you remember laughing when he abandoned me at the airport?" I asked softly. "Do you remember calling me useless? Trash? Dead weight?" Their faces drained. "Now you're here, at my door, crawling." Mom reached out, desperate, but I stepped back and shut the door. Their fists pounded, their voices begged, but I didn't open it again. From the window, I watched them leave, their shoulders slumped, their pride crushed. That night, I sat on my bed, notebook open on my lap, and drew a line through the last page. Not because the pain was gone, it would never really leave, but because the circle was complete. They had left me behind once, at 15, with nothing but a backpack and tears. Now I had left them behind with nothing but their own ruin. And for the first time, I didn't feel like waste. I felt like justice. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.